can I just be really, really honest? I think this is one of the most cowardly things I've ever seen in politics. Winston fucking Peters, who had the ability and chance, if he wanted to stop the regulatory standards bill, passed it, and now he's saying, I'm going to oppose it. Honestly, I'm sorry, I don't accept it was a part of the coalition agreement, because what he's actively saying is there is this terrible policy that I had to sign on so I wouldn't find my balls. I mean, he could have blown it up in a heartbeat. He chose not to. He is literally the definition of having his cake and eating it too, because he passed it. And you wait till we play the story if you've seen no footage. Last week in the House, what New Zealand First said about this thing, they were all glowing about it. And today he's basically saying this is communism. I mean, he's not using those words, but he's saying it's the worst of the worst. It is the most cowardly thing I've ever seen in politics. Let's have a squiz.
It only became law 2 days ago with the help of his party, but Winston Peters is already vowing to ditch it. A coalition clash has erupted after the New Zealand First leader publicly stated he'll repeal David Seymour's Regulatory Standards Act. Peters says he'll campaign against it in next year's election. David Seymour firing back with a warning that New Zealand First is cozying up to Labour. Here's senior political reporter Benedict Collins.
Speaker! This time last week, the government was harmoniously passing a new law.
Mr. Speaker, the Regulatory Standards Bill is a good idea that has been a long time coming.
Yeah, 20 years. He said today in one of the interviews that this has been Act's plan for 20 years. So, John Key, any of those people that hand shook him, probably Don Brash is in there as well. You've all got a part of this. Because this has been Act's plan for 20 years. Yeah. 20 years. This is the definition of the long game. And they're going to show it in here. You wait till you see last week what New Zealand First was saying about this regulatory standards bill that today Winston Peters is saying is of the devil.
I congratulate the ACT Party.
New Zealand First was singing its praises.
We support this bill because on the fundamentals it promotes open and accountable government that legislates with key principles in mind: the rule of law, efficiency in regulation, property rights.
The party's position was crystal clear.
We have no hesitation in commending this bill to the House.
But
they had no hesitation last week, but today this is undemocratic. But last week, no hesitation. So therefore, did you just finally read it for the first time, Mr. Peters, and realise what you had passed? Or last week were you lying? Because they're the only two options. You've only just realised what you've passed, or you were lying last week. They're your only two options.
For a week, and it turns out they actually detest this law.
Because you're putting all the power in the hands of a small unelected committee.
Yes.
That's not how democracy works.
Yes.
Democracy works this way. The politicians make the decision and the people get to pass their verdict every 3 years.
So you're actively telling us, Mr. Peters, that this is not how democracy works. The policy and legislation that you enable to happen is also enabling democracy not to work. So you broke democracy, Mr. Peters, and now you're trying to go, but we're going to do something about it. You could have done something about it 2 weeks ago. Not next year. Not in 18 months from now.
Objecting to a regulatory standards board having oversight of and weighing in on ministers' legislation.
That sort of intervention in the democratic process is not fit for a modern democracy. It was in the coalition agreement, but we will campaign against it in 2026.
Oh, well, that's great.
Well, it's pretty worrying because that's Labor's position. It sounds like he's getting ready to go with Labor again.
Saying Mr. Peters is all over the place.
It's hard to know what he's trying to do from one day to the next. What's clear is that this is a landmark piece of legislation that ACT would never vote to get rid of. So if he wants to do that, he's got to go with Labor.
Don't make me laugh.
Mr Seymour says ACT has worked on this law for 20 years and keeping it is a bottom line.
If his goal is to get rid of the Regulatory Standards Act, he's not going to get votes from us to do that, so he'd have to go with Labor.
The way that the government is polling, the general unpopularity that they're experiencing, perhaps is having an impact on Winston Peters and New Zealand First, and it looks like they're wanting to differentiate themselves.
Yep.
Labor clearly enjoying the coalition chaos.
Winston Peters really firing a shot today, Benedict. Is that shot effectively the starting gun for next year's election campaign?
Well, it definitely feels that way, and Winston Peters has certainly put a cat among the pigeons today by promising to kill off ACT's legislative baby. But it's also quite a sneaky political move here from Winston Peters. No sooner was the ink dry on this new law than he's promising to bury it. I did notice, though, that after the law passed last week, a lot of the criticism was actually directed at New Zealand First and at Winston Peters. Those critics were saying, Mr Peters, this bill goes against everything that you and New Zealand First stand for. It seems now that perhaps Winston Peters feels the same way. But what's going to be really interesting here is to watch over the next year how things play out between David Seymour and Winston Peters.
I agree on that. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, I'm not trying to belittle it. I've said in the past that back in the day, interviewing Winston was quite fun because he's so argumentative. But it is going to be fun to watch, even though it's probably going to be toxic and horrific and not good for the country. But to step back and watch those two have a crack at each other, if they could, either of them could wish anything after the next election, it's that they didn't have to deal with the other person. So that's going to be enjoyable to watch, if nothing else.
Look, they have a long history of animosity, and people have been really impressed with how well they've managed to work so far in this first 2 years of this coalition government. Now we'll have to be looking to see whether those gloves come off. Look, I spoke to David Seymour a short time ago. He told me that Mr Peters didn't give him any heads up that this was coming, but he also said, hey, look, ACT's really focused on trying to bring in new laws that are going to make New Zealand life better for New Zealanders. He doesn't want to get too caught up in the politics here. But what I don't understand...
It's funny, eh? Never a truer word be spoken that Luxon doesn't want to get caught up in politics. Like, never a truer word be spoken. The man who can't do politics, who's terrible at it, who's got no 1 ounce of leadership in him, doesn't want to have anything to do with politics.
I don't want to get caught up in the politics. That's why I want an office in the beehive.
Yeah. I mean,
What
like,
an idiot.
perfect.
Here, and what I do find quite funny is what lengths New Zealand First went to in the House last week to really praise this bill, given there was really no need for them to do this, and presumably they all knew that they were going to make this move this week to kill it. I guess it goes to show we do need to take what politicians say here at Parliament with a grain of salt.
Grain of salt, bucket of salt, Chewie. Now, I've talked lots during that story. What are your thoughts, bro?
Oh, you can tell that the election's on the way because we're back to big Winnie Styles. And look, I think that this is even so transparently hypocritical that even his own followers aren't going to take it.
Yeah,
like they love saying that he's playing, you can't get anything past Winston. But to see just the hypocrisy and flimflammery of promoting this bill and voting for it, and then the very next week positioning yourself like you're incredibly against it because it's a danger to democracy. Guess what? It was when you voted for it. And just because you're right now doesn't mean that you didn't play your part in putting it into position. This is the sort of shit that New Zealanders hate from politicians.
I have a question for you. Did you just arrive from the 1800s? Flimflammery? I mean...
Yeah. Well, Winston might be watching this, and I don't think he'll get my reference to Big Winnie Styles. So Yeah. I thought I'd put in something that he would recognise. I could also call him a carpetbagger.
Yes.
That'd be another one that he'd quite like. But look, if there's a silver lining to this, the ferries and this bullshit over the RSB could be Winston Peters' legacy going out. And that would be acceptable to me. Like, this man has run roughshod through the New Zealand political scene for longer than I've been alive, and I'd love him to go out on an absolute turd. And I think at this point, you know, look, I said that Labor should just rule him out. I don't think they should. Now, based on this, I don't think they should rule him out. I think they should rule him out in their heads.
Yeah, but you're not saying that. Yeah, they're not going to work with him, but you're saying they shouldn't publicly give him the out.
No, because it is just going to make things awkward for him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought. Yeah, like I said at the start, this is just the most cowardly thing. I mean, what it shows, right, is Winston Peters is any means to an end. And if you're any means to an end, you do the worst thing. That basically means you are for sale. So Mr. Baubles of office has just proven again that he would sell his ethics, if he's got any, for the baubles of office. Because the only reason he did this undemocratic, as he identifies it, policy, was to get back into government and to be the deputy prime minister for 18 months. It is the most cowardly, most disgusting thing. It's just repugnant. It's just repugnant. Now, I know people out there are going to be like, Pat, a lot worse that happens that every single day of the year. Yeah, but within Parliament, to basically go, we're going to pass this undemocratic bill that I know is undemocratic, that is an attack on democracy, but we're going to pass it anyway. It's just cowardly. But we spoke to that former National Party MP, her name eludes me right now, about in the 80s how they walked across the floor all the time, whether it was for nuclear free or whatever it was. And these guys are just cowards. They're cowards, they're gutless, and they will not stand by. They don't have morals, but if they had them, they refuse to stand by them. It's just revolting. I'm actually disgusted. You know, it's not like I'm offended, or it's not like I'm thinking you're an arsehole. I'm actually disgusted. It's revolting. It's not necessarily corruption, but it's like the corrupt activity of someone who would do anything they can. They'll cheat, they'll steal, they'll lie, as long as they get the win.
Do you know what that is? Why it gets under your skin so much? Because when you're a person that has strong principles, seeing the absence of principles in someone is a really fucking confronting thing. Like I was watching a clip that's doing the rounds at the moment of Shane Jones, not even 10 years ago, railing against the government of the time's position on doing more mining. And then it was going to ravage the environment. It wasn't even going to be worth it for the economy. All of this sort of thing. With the fire and passion that he has now for strip mining the environment. And that's what I mean. Like New Zealanders see that when they're disparaging of politicians, this is what they're disparaging of. Someone that doesn't have principles. Someone that is going to flip-flop. And I think there is no more egregious example of that than the leader of New Zealand First and the deputy leader of New Zealand First.
There's a very good chat here from MLB Kiwi. And like, obviously, it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's tongue-in-cheek. When things are tongue-in-cheek with an element of truth, you go, how about this one? We're waiting to see Winnie's crypto coin next.
It'd be a wooden nickel.